Everything starts with God. This universe started with God. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You and I started with God. He is the one who created you. Everything starts with God. And the Bible starts with God. This gospel message starts with God. Everything starts with God. And God, who is, and the God who is truly God, is the God of the Bible. At the core of each person, there is a desire and a yearning for God. They can deny it and suppress this yearning for Him and live an unfulfilled life. But God has made it so that we all have conscience. A conscience that is moved and pricked and disturbed when it hears the gospel message. Why is the human conscience disturbed when it hears the gospel message? Because it knows the gospel message is true. When people hear that there is a God who created the heavens and earth, their conscience tells them that it is true, that everything couldn't be here by accident. The world and all its complexities couldn't be formed by happenstance. When people hear that God created them, that He formed them, that He designed them in His own image, and that human beings are not animals, and that they are not a mishap of the evolutionary process, their conscience tells them that this is true. When people hear that God who created this universe and the God who created humanity therefore expects His creation to love Him and to obey the laws that He has set in His universe, their conscience tells them that this is true also. But why do people fight with their conscience if they know this is true? The answer is simple. The gospel message reveals to us that we are all guilty. Who wants to hear that they are guilty? That is why people suppress the gospel message, because the gospel message points the finger at you, and me, and tells us that we are all guilty and have fallen short of the laws of this infinite God, who has set requirements for us that we haven't met. And their conscience tells them that all of this is true, and that God requires we love one another because all humans are made in the image of God and are therefore special in the eyes of God. When people hear that God requires we love Him with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind, and that the proof of this love is seen. John chapter 14 verse 15, if you love me, keep my commandments. But people do not like what their conscience is telling them, because they know they have not kept His commandments. They know they haven't kept His laws, and they are guilty. And they have offended and disobeyed a God who is eternal, infinite. Therefore they are guilty, but their conscience suppresses the truth. Because if the truth be told, who wants to know that an everlasting God is angry with them? Who wants to know that every one of their actions, thoughts, and deeds will one day be examined? Who wants to know that all their sins will be judged and the punishment for each of them are everlasting? Who wants to know that they will spend eternity in the lake of fire? I have said all of this to come to this point. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. There are several salient verses in the scriptures that we often do not pay good attention to, and this passage is one of them. Embedded in its lines are mysteries that have eternal relevance. What 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 18 tells us is that there are two groups, those who are perishing and those who are saved. And the Bible gives us a reminder of those two groups through scriptures, and even on Judgment Day, there will be those two groups.
On the day of the Lord, the Bible describes a separation, a division into groups. The Bible describes this in many ways. Here are some of them. Matthew 25:31-46. The two groups are sheep and the goats. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Revelation 20, verse 15. The two groups are written and not written. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life. Colossians 1:13. The two groups are the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of heaven. Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. Matthew 13, verses 1-58. The two groups are those who bear fruit, and those who don't. Even so, every good tree bringeth fruit, good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Matthew 7:17. This is a day in which we cannot avoid. It doesn't matter if you run to the east or to the west. You will stand before him. You will come before his judgment seat. You cannot outrun a God who can speak whole worlds out of nothing. It's nothing to him to raise the dead and to bring them to the judgment seat, that they may speak to him about the way that they've lived and thought and spoken and acted. And God, the great King and the only potentate, guarantees that every evil word will be remembered. Every evil act will be called to account. Every evil thought will be published openly.
But these two groups know the gospel message is true. But one group has decided to be saved by the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 2 says, For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. The Bible makes it clear there are only two types of spirits, two types of people, those who are perishing and those who are being saved. What type of spirit do you have? Is your spirit perishing, or has yours been saved by Christ? There is no middle ground. You are his, or you are not his. The Bible makes it clear that there are only two types of spirits, two types of people, those who are perishing and those who are being saved. What type of spirit do you have? Is your spirit perishing, or has yours been saved by Christ? There is no middle ground.
This is God's universe. He spoke it into existence. This is God's universe, and He is the one who holds it all together. This is God's universe, and He will one day destroy it to create a new heaven and a new earth. This is God's universe, and He will one day judge it.
Be holy. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 15 through 16, KJV. But as he which hath called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation, because it is written, Be ye holy, for I am holy. First of all, I would like to say that holiness is not old school. People in this age have seen holiness as an old school thing. People often say pastors or some church members judge. When they condemn a habit, we say they judge. We need to know that not all the time pastors or Christians condemn behavior that they judge. Some things must be said to preserve true doctrine. Some things must be called out to make people have the fear of God in them. When we condemn the behavior, we are not condemning the person. It is not our job to condemn people, but that particular thing which is bad that they have done, we can condemn it. When we do this, people often see it as passing a judgment. It is sure that if you sin, you will be punished. It is a fact that sin will bring death. If someone sins and we tell them that the sins will take them to hell, we are not judging. We are telling them the truth according to the word of God. The Bible says in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 11 KJV, that woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. If you tell the wicked this according to the Bible, you let them know what the Bible is saying about their actions. You are not judging them. We should not mistake warnings for judgment. Our job is to warn, and it is the work of God to judge. People have taken impurity into the church of Christ. Everywhere you go now, you see the new ways they do things in the church, and many churches are adapting these things at the expense of holiness. What is important to many pastors and ministers of God these days is the church attendance. The number of people coming into the church is all they're concerned about, but they don't care about the number of people going to heaven. Holiness is not old school. It is something we must preach at all times. If you don't know, holiness is a shield. Isaiah chapter 35, verses 8 through 9, NKJV. A highway shall be there, and a road, and it shall be called the highway of holiness. The unclean shall never pass over it, but it shall be for others. Whoever walks the road, although a fool, shall not go astray. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast go up on it. It shall not be found there. But the redeemed shall walk there. On the path of holiness, you can never be consumed. The Bible says no unclean will be there. Demons cannot be there. Satan cannot be there, which means holiness will shield you from these evil ones. Now, using our deductive reasoning skills, we can all conclude what type of things lay on the path of sin. What types of demons are on the path of sin? There are lions and beasts on the path of sin. That is why we see destruction always follows sin. The dark nature of sin is that it exposes you to all kinds of evils. It exposes you to things that are in the world. For instance, the sin of fornication and adultery exposes you to physical illnesses, and it joins you to other people. Imagine 15 minutes of pleasure and then being joined with someone in the spirit. When you fornicate or commit adultery, you are becoming one with that person. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to a harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. The sin of lying. Each time a person lies, they are exhibiting the characteristics of the devil, because he is the father of lies. The devil jumps with joy every time you lie. He literally shouts and smiles and says, "Welcome to the club." God does not lie. God cannot lie. It is not in his nature. Stray away from the path of sin. Let this be a warning to us this day that the path of sin leads to destruction. Let us stay on the path of holiness. Sometimes you will wonder how some people are making it with ease. You'll wonder why these things are so perfect with them. It is not like they are not being attacked or they don't have something that is challenging them, but because they have decided to take the path of holiness, things have always been working out for them. Will you take the path of holiness too? Will you make a decision today that you will never trade holiness for anything? Don't let anyone lure you to do something impure. What they will tell you is that no one is perfect. No one may be perfect, but you should never allow this phrase to push you out of the path of holiness. God has called you to holiness, not to impurity. God did not call you to come and live a life of sin. God called you out of darkness because he wants to rescue you from the reward of sin, which is death. You need to focus on the path of holiness. Stay away from the path that is filled with the beasts that are ready to consume you. One act of sin can reshape the next 5 years of your life. Sin is not a joke. It really isn't. One sin can reshape the next 20 years of your life. Sin will cost you more than you are willing to pay. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 7, KJV. For God hath not called us into uncleanness, but unto holiness. It doesn't matter what people say about holiness today or what they call it. Make up your mind that you will always be holy. They will call you different names. They will say you are too religious. They will say you are an over-the-top. Don't let any of these words discourage you from following the right path, which is the path of holiness. Holiness is not the thing of the past. They may say you are too religious, but God wants you to be holy. He wants you to remain pure. He wants you to maintain a clean heart. Why is holiness important to us as Christians? Why should we live a holy life? 1. We were commanded to. If we look at that Bible verse where God told us to be holy, we will see that it wasn't a plea, it was a command. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2 KJV. Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. The scripture says, Ye shall. It is a command from God. God was not advising anyone here. He wasn't begging them to be holy, but he was commanding them. Holiness is not optional. If you are indeed a child of God, prove it with a holy life. It was part of the commandments that God has given us, and we must follow it by letter. We cannot afford to allow sin to get the best of us. It will only expose us to the beasts. It will expose us to the unclean spirits. Devils will have a legal ground in our lives if we allow sin in us. We need to be pure. We always claim that we love God. If you do not do what God asks you to do, you don't love Him. You must keep His commandments if you claim to love God, and God is commanding you to be holy. We don't have any excuse for living an unholy life. Have you been called names and you feel like you cannot take it anymore, and you start living an immoral life? The people who are calling you names, the people who are pushing you to live an ungodly life, will not be there when you are punished for it. They will not share your punishments. You will be the one to take your punishments alone. Why should you now allow them to make you go against the commandment of God? There is a reason why God commanded us to be holy. This is to keep us in check. It is to let us run away from sin and the appearance of sin. We know the children of Israel to be stubborn. There was a need for God to make a command that they must live a holy life. That commandment has not expired. God is commanding us today to live a holy life. That is what distinguishes us from other people. The Bible says in Exodus chapter 23, verse 2, KJV, that thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. 2. You cannot see God without holiness. Another way to say this is, you cannot enter the kingdom of God without holiness. I'm not judging anyone. I'm not writing anyone off. I'm saying what the Bible has told us. You cannot see God without holiness. Holiness is a requirement to get into heaven. If anyone tells you that this truth means that they are judging you, that person is trying to stop you from going to heaven. It doesn't matter how hard you pray. Anyone can pray. It doesn't matter how much you give to people. Anyone can give to people. Without holiness, you cannot enter heaven and you cannot see God. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14, KJV. Follow peace with all men in holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. There is no other meaning to this. It is simply saying if you cannot live a holy life, then forget about heaven. No holiness, no heaven. God doesn't want you to go to hell. God doesn't want you to be condemned. God doesn't want you to face the second death, but if you don't choose holiness, then you are not choosing the love of God for you and His wishes for you. Some people want to go to heaven, but they can't stop fornication. Some people want to see God, but their mouth and heart is full of deceit. They belong to their father, the devil. This is not a judgment on anyone. It is the truth that God wants you to know. If you are not holy, forget about seeing God. This is the time for you to choose holiness. What would be your gain if you allow ungodliness to hinder you from seeing God? What would be your gain if you follow what people say here on earth and miss out on seeing God? Nothing would be as beautiful as seeing God. Live a holy life. 3. God is holy. Another reason why you must live a holy life is that your Creator, the one whom you were called to serve, is holy. For some jobs, there are jobs that require you to put on a uniform that your boss puts on. If you refuse to put that uniform on at work all the time, you might be sacked. The same thing with God. He wants you to be holy because He is the boss and He is holy. Then you must be holy. God has called you to holiness.